Flight boss, bitch. You know, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Terry's Moon. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And I'm a little low on energy, but that's besides the fact, because ain't nothing gonna stop us from getting this spiritual wisdom and knowledge to the masses. And this video right here is gonna be about dimensional numerology. And the whole purpose of me making this video right here is to help everyone get an understanding on what number sequence, aka what frequency vibration, make up each dimension. Now, when we start to talk about numbers, numerology, we know numbers itself is just not technically something that you add and subtract and multiply with. But for the most part, we may use numbers to add and subtract and multiply within the realm of reality or the dimension that we exist in at the moment. It has to be based on that. But the essence of these things is something else. So when we start to talk about numbers, these are like frequencies that you can kind of ride like a guideline. And when you ride these line of events, you always manifest a similar outcome. So for an example, right? Let's use the number 1 for an example, for people who might start to think I'm pseudo or something like that. But scientists will be able to understand me, hopefully. When we start to talk about the number 1, yeah, we could utilize the number 1 to count each person or object. But when we start to talk about the essence of 1, this is back to supported by individuality or being singled out. Keyword, single. So for the most part, when you ride that guideline in the cosmos, because these are what numbers actually are, they're frequencies that you can ride as a line of event. When you start to ride a certain line of event and start to multiply those thought forms, aka of individuality or singleness, you're going to manifest the outcome out of that circumstance. And within your life, you're going to manifest a circumstance or a situation or a scenario where you're either seen as an individual or you're being singled out of something. Or you're trying to single out a person, place, or thing. But regardless of the outcome, this is the type of frequency that you're riding. You're riding the number 1 frequency. And you see how I'm explaining it? When it ain't got nothing to do with adding or subtracting, but I'm still talking about it as it resonating as a frequency. And if you ride that line of event long enough, you're going to start to be seen as selfish or someone who's lost in their own individuality, to the point that you need to add other number patterns to your system for you to flow fluidly within this realm of reality that we are in. But that's getting besides the fact of this video. I just wanted people to give them an understanding of how numbers being played out, whether you're adding or subtracting or multiplying or division with these motherfuckers or not. I mean, dividing with these motherfucking numbers or not. These are just things that your spirit is riding. When you create a spaceship, a thought form, a man, a masculine energy, when you create an idea, a conscious, a wave, this is your spaceship, your cherubim. And for the most part, when you jump into it as a spirit, you want to ride certain frequencies in the cosmos. And this is where we start to get into dimensional numerology, which is a good segue to what we're talking about right now. So look, check this out, right? Now, when we start to talk about dimensions, you know it's only 9 numbers, so it's only 9 dimensions. Anytime we start to talk about compounds, that's just something that the add-on to bring it down into a realm of reality in some way, shape, or form. So when we start to talk about 9 numbers, right? You got the dimensions. You got 1 and 2, which leads us to the 3rd dimension. 4 and 5, which leads us to the 6th dimension. 7 and 8th, which leads us to the 9th dimension. So we know when we start to talk about something becoming whole, or as spirits, when we're trying to create a shape and form to be born within that realm of reality, to become whole, we know this is wholeness. 3, 6, 9. Now we know we have to combine a masculine and a feminine energy together, and once these things come together, we can be seen as whole and be born out within that realm of reality. So from a creation point of standpoint, this like 1 and 2 dimension makes up the 3rd dimension, the 4th and 5th dimension makes up the 6th dimension, and the 7th and the 8th dimension makes up the 9th dimension, because these are when you become whole in these dimensions and you have 2 attributes to utilize, which is your masculine and your feminine energies. So you can say that 1 is masculine, 2 is feminine, bring these 2 together, you could become whole in that realm of reality, which is the 3rd dimension that we're in right now. So when we start to get into what number sequence, what frequencies make up each dimension, the 3rd dimension, so I don't want to keep digressing, so you know which one we're talking about, all the wholeness right now. What makes up the 3rd dimension is 1, 4, and 7. And this is the physical realm. What makes up the 6th dimension, which is the material realm, is the 2, 5, and 8. What makes up the 9th dimension is the essence, which is 3, 6, and 9. And I'm going to break down why it's like that. Now look, the essence, which is the ninth dimension. We know things is correlated in threes. So anytime you point the energy of 3 into a circumstance or a situation or a person, place, or thing, you're always going to find the essence behind something. So that means doing something 3 times or looking at something from 3 points of views. You ever heard that saying that there's always 2 sides to the story and then there's the truth? So for the most part, anytime you take the energy of 3-ness and point it towards a person, place, or thing, or whatever you're trying to participate in at the moment, you're always going to find the essence behind whatever you're pointing that 3 energy towards. So keep that in mind. This is why when we start to calculate the numbers, to help you understand what I'm talking about, we times 1 through 9 by 3. So for the most part, that's like 1 times 3, which is 1 3 times, is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. Then that brings us into 4 times 3 is 12, which don't do nothing but brings us back to 3. 5 times 3 is 15, which don't do nothing but brings us back to 6. And 6 times 3 is 18, which don't do nothing but brings us back to 9 on a higher level. So you got 3, 6, 9 on a higher level. So I don't have to keep going through this. You might want to pause the video and see how I broke this down real quick so you can see each number. So you can see why the third dimension is made up of 147, because 1 times 3, 4 times 3, and 7 times 3 all came to 3. See what I'm saying? And here's why the sixth dimension is made up of 2, 5, and 8. Because 2 times 3 came to 6. See what I'm saying? 5 times 3 came to 6. Because that's 15 in numerology. That's 6. And 8 times 3 came to 6. See what I'm saying? And so on and so forth. And here's where you get to the ninth dimension. So you can pause this video and you can kind of see the number patterns of why it's like that. So for the most part, breaking down the actual, now I have a video breaking down numerology as far as each number so you can kind of understand it to a more in-depth nature. But for the most part, let's just break it down right here. Now, when we start to talk about the third dimension is controlled by the number frequency patterns of 1, 4, and 7. So that makes up the physical realm. So what actually makes up the physical realm? 1 represents individuality, 4 represents thoughts, and 7 represents knowledge. So individual thoughts and having knowledge about the thoughts that an individual push out as far as their masculine energies. So keep that in mind. Or their lights, or their consciousness, or their waves. And that what makes up. So if we're all doing this next to each other, we make up the physical realm. You see what I'm saying? Now, the material, which is the sixth dimension, this is controlled by the frequency pattern of 2, 5, and 8. So anytime you're writing these numbers, you're kind of writing a fifth dimensional frequency. You see what I'm saying? The third dimension, which is 147, ride this water wave, which is a slow vibrational one. You see what I'm saying? Then you got the purgatory one, which is 258. It ride this wave. It's a little lighter in frequency, but it's kind of stuck in between 2 worlds. You see what I'm saying? And then you got the 369 that ride this frequency up here, where everything is based upon your own individual space, and you could kind of choose on what shape and form and transformation that you actually go through based upon your own individual universe. That's another, and I don't even want to say universe because that says all of our verses united. So you would just be your own verse, but that's another video. But here's the thing. That's the essence realm. Now, when we start to talk about 2 represents duality. 5 represents emotions. 8 represents time. So the sixth dimension, which is the material, what makes up the sixth dimension, aka what makes up material, is duality. So that's what sex is. And it's the joining of 2 energies to create another energy, right? So when you got 2 of the same energies that come together, that might be harmful. When you got 2 different energies that come together, that might be harmonious. When we talk about 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional wise, you see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also. So duality, that's what duality is. Then emotions, that's 5. So duality and having an emotional standpoint from what you just received and what you're outputting, and then the time on that. So all of that is the wave of the 6th dimension. So you know that before things come physical, it has to be the material. And before things are the material, it has to be the essence, which is the 369. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also. And that's helping you understand what number frequency vibrations are correlated to each dimension. So the ninth dimension, anytime you're correlating to anytime you're paying attention to your surroundings, giving attention, and receiving some type of wisdom from the experience of your surroundings and what you're giving attention to, you're riding ninth dimensional energies. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of times those essence are not even brought down to be expressed because they're not materialized yet. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also. When you are perceiving your surroundings and giving attention to something and then receiving the wisdom from it, that is not something that's materialized yet, right? So that's the ninth dimension. Then once you peep out your surroundings, which is your space, because that's what the 369 is. It's correlated to your spirit, your space, your circumference, your zero, your circle. Pardon me. So for the most part, when you're paying attention to your surroundings, which is the 3, you're giving it attention, which you're starting to manifest, and then you're getting wisdom out of the space and your individuality that you're in. Then that brings us down to the 6th dimension. It's the material realm. So now you start to push that out as duality. You start to have an emotion and feeling about it, and you give it time. You hone in on that emotion and feeling, and then that water and fire will start to manifest into the physical realm, which is the 3rd dimension. And here's where you could be an individual and have thoughts and have knowledge about the thoughts that you're in this realm of reality with. So for the most part, this is just letting you know what numbers make up each realm. You know what I'm saying? So 147 makes up the physical realm, which is the 3rd dimension. You know what I'm saying? Individuality, thoughts, and knowledge. The 6th dimension is the material realm. That's duality, feelings and emotions, and motherfucking time. That makes up purgatory. That makes up the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. You see what I'm saying? And the 9th dimension, which is 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, is the essence. And that's the 369. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we only have attributes down here in the 3rd dimension to seeing things from 3 sides. You know what I'm saying? Once we start to see things from 6 sides and 9 sides, it's kind of hard for us to do, and we can't even fathom that. But a lot of times your way of fathoming that is you add a 3 times 2 energy to something when you start to give a lot of attention to something. So you and your surroundings, right? You might not be paying attention to everything. As soon as you pay attention to something, you add another 3 spectrum light. So for the most part, that becomes the 6. And the more, and then the more you get into that light, you end up extracting some wisdom from whatever you're paying attention to. Otherwise, without no experience, you wouldn't even be able to extract no wisdom from anything because it lack experience. So anything you see in your surroundings, 3rd dimension, start to pay it attention, 6th dimension, and then motherfucker extract the wisdom from it, that's 9th dimension. Now remind you, ain't nothing materialized from that, because now all you got is an idea or a feeling and emotion, what brings you down into the 6th dimension. You see what I'm saying? Where things can start to materialize, aka manifest. With duality, how is that relating with your emotions and the emotional wave that you are in, and how much time you're willing to put into it, aka this is what they actually mean by selling your soul. Selling your soul. Your soul is your individual. Everybody has a soul. It's an individual spirit. So we're all spirits. So, but if you are an individual spirit, that's what a soul is. So we get confused and try to think these are 2 separate things. These are the same things. You know what I'm saying? It's just when you live in an overall spirit, that's an oversoul. You see what I'm saying? So when they say you going into the spirit, you going into whatever spirit that you live in at the moment, and then you carrying out some kind of, because you'll get people trying to say that, people always trying to call the spirit something. Now people trying to call the spirits ideas and thought forms. I told y'all that's light. God damn it, how lost people gonna get? You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, like I said, your spirit is no shape and form. So always keep that in mind. You know what I'm saying? Based upon me presenting this knowledge first is why a lot of people gonna be down, because they refuse to listen to someone that look like me. So they rather come up with their own knowledge and things of that nature, and it's always gonna be wrong. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, like I said, when you talk about selling your soul, right? That means you're just giving your time, because your spirit is in your space, and anytime you give your time, you're paying attention to something. So you're giving your soul force. Soul force. A force is what your soul create. Force, consciousness, energy. You see what I'm saying? You create energy. Your spirit is not that. So your individual spirit is your soul. So for the most part, when you give off a piece of that to someone else, then for the most part, you giving them your time. And that's 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional wise. You see what I'm saying? So you need to keep that in mind also. So anytime you giving your time, if you're giving all of your time away to something, that you sold your soul. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about selling your soul, it's not like selling something in the physical realm. It's you being absorbed in someone else's space. Your space is in someone else's space. You're no longer in your space. So your space always has to constantly be washed up into the waves of their space. Remind you, if your spirit, your soul is just your circle, your space, and we create all these lights, these forces and consciousness in it, say you done took your spirit out of all your creations and put it in someone else's creations. Now as a spirit, as a soul, you're just swimming in their waters. And if their waters is not going in your way a lot of times, this what makes you spiritually frustrated and makes you feel like you don't got your own time, or you need more of your own time, or you're giving too much of your time to something else. That's what it means by selling your soul. So you can always take your time back, but sometimes we give so much of our space to other people to the point that we lose ourselves into that. And to the point that we just work in someone else's world in some way, shape, or form. And I ain't even just talking about a job. That could just be relationships, associations, friends, all kind of shits and things of that nature. So be careful of that. But for the most part, that's what it technically means by selling your soul. You know what I'm saying? You selling your time. Because that's 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional energy right there. When you going up there creating spaceships and as light as your Merkaba. And you just basically putting your time in each area to create chakras and things of that nature. But when you start to do that for other people's chakras and stuff like that, here's where it comes to you sold your soul. Because 9 times out of 10, whatever you're giving your time to, you're trying to get something out of it. So you feel like it's worth it. You feel like giving your piece of your space for that can replace your space with something else. But a lot of times you never be satisfied because it's still your space that's missing. It's your soul that's missing, and you need to go get that back. So a lot of times you might get what you want out of the scenario, but you didn't give so much yourself to the scenario that sometimes it takes other means, not material means. It might take you to cut somebody out, or it might take you to make somebody else feel a certain way for you to take your energy back in some way, shape, or form. Keyword, take your energy back. Your soul is just your space. When you say take your energy back, you're taking something back. It's external to you. It's not you. Like, people contradict themselves every day. You know what I'm saying? You got to know what you're saying. You see what I'm saying? Now, so that's just giving you the understanding. This is a little quick video and shit like that. I just wanted to run down real fast on some philosophy shit real quick, though. Just to warm myself up so when I get back charged, you know what I'm saying, I'm back. Like, I'm going to be lit tomorrow, but I just want to, you know what I'm saying, put some little content out. But yeah, flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.